I'll never forget that night. The pizza place I worked at was minutes from closing, and I was just about to head home when the phone rang. I was alone at the counter, so I picked it up. Silence. Complete, eerie silence. I hung up, thinking it was a prank, but a minute later it rang again. I answered, and again, nothing. Just as I was about to hang up, I heard it. A frail, icy voice on the other end. An old woman. She wanted a regular pizza delivered. I stayed polite, but inside, I was screaming. All I wanted was to go home. I called out to my boss, letting him know about the delivery. He told me I had to take it. I was annoyed at first, but then I remembered. Older customers usually tipped well. Maybe it'd be worth it. I took down the address and told her I'd be there soon, but she'd already hung up. Rude, but whatever. I yelled to the cook for one regular pie and grabbed my keys. My boss said I could go home after the delivery since the shop would be closed by then. It was just before 10 p.m. when I got in my car and punched the address into my GPS. 7 miles away, on the quiet side of town. The drive was uneventful, but when I pulled up to the house, something felt off. It was a small, one-story home on a dead-end street, completely dark. No lights on inside. I grabbed the pizza and walked up to the door, ringing the bell. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I was about to leave when I turned and saw her. An old woman standing at the window staring at me with hollow eyes. I froze for a second, then forced myself to move closer. "I've got your pizza," I shouted through the glass. No reaction. I yelled again, louder this time. That's when her face changed. She smiled, a wide, unnatural grin that made my blood run cold. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was wrong. I'll never forget that look. I bolted back to my car, tossed the pizza onto the passenger seat, and texted my boss about what happened. As I started the engine, I glanced to my right, and there she was, standing right outside my window, staring at me with that same terrifying smile. I slammed the gas pedal and didn't look back. My boss never made me do another late-night delivery after that. This next story happened 4 years ago, back when I was in high school. It was my last delivery of the night, and I was ready to be done. I hopped into my beat-up 1999 Camry, perfect for pizza deliveries, and plugged the address into my GPS. Living upstate in the country meant every delivery was a trek, and this one was no exception. The sun was setting, so it must have been around 7 o'clock. After 15 minutes of winding through dirt roads surrounded by nothing but trees, my GPS announced I'd arrived. The house was an old wooden cottage tucked away in the middle of nowhere. The lawn was overgrown, the grass nearly knee-high. I was used to remote deliveries, so I didn't think much of it. I grabbed the pizza and walked up to the front door. No doorbell, so I knocked hard. Within seconds, I heard footsteps inside. They stopped right at the door. I waited, but no one answered. "It's the pizza guy," I called out. That's when I heard a low, raspy voice from the other side. "Bring it out back." I hesitated. Something felt wrong. "Are you sure, sir?" I asked. No response. The footsteps didn't move away, and I got the distinct feeling I was being watched through the peephole. I almost turned around and left, but I didn't want to deal with my boss's attitude if I came back with the pizza. So, reluctantly, I trudged through the tall grass and around to the back of the house. There was a small patio with a table and 4 chairs. In one of the chairs, facing away from me, was someone sitting perfectly still. "Excuse me," I said, but they didn't move. I tried again, louder this time. Then, from behind me, I heard, "Over here." I spun around to see a man peeking out from the corner of the house, grinning like a maniac. "Come over here, I want to show you something." I didn't stick around to find out what he meant. I turned and ran, still clutching the pizza, back to my car. I sped off, my heart pounding, and called the police as soon as I had service. They later told me the house had been abandoned for years. I quit that job a few days later. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed, or if I'd turned to see who was sitting in that chair. This last story still gives me nightmares. I was working a late shift delivering pizzas in the Poconos. It was a rural area, and I often found myself driving down dark, tree-lined roads. That night, it was especially foggy. I was taking a shortcut I'd used countless times before when, out of nowhere, someone jumped from the bushes into the road. I slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The sickening thud confirmed I'd hit them. I got out of the car, my hands shaking. The man was lying motionless by my tire, wearing a black hoodie with the hood up. I didn't know what to do. Why was he out here in the middle of nowhere? Why had he jumped in front of my car? Then I heard it, a scream for help coming from the woods. I looked at the man on the ground, still not moving, and made the split-second decision to investigate. "I'll only be a minute," I told myself, as if that made it okay. I ran toward the sound, but the woods were silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves. "Where are you?" I shouted. That's when I heard it, the crunch of footsteps behind me. I turned and saw a shadowy figure hiding behind a tree. I didn't wait to find out who it was. I bolted back to my car, my heart racing. When I got there, the man I'd hit was gone. I didn't stick around to figure out where he went, I just drove. I still delivered the pizza, though. When I got to the house, a middle-aged woman answered the door. After she paid, she glanced over my shoulder and asked, "They let you guys have delivery partners now?" Confused, I turned around and saw someone sitting in the back seat of my car. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the person was gone. The scariest part? They found a blood-stained knife on the floor of my car. To this day, I can't shake the feeling of how close I came to something unimaginable.